Welcome everybody. We are in beautiful Belmont Shore, a little sub-city of Long Beach. I was born just around the corner. Today, we are gonna go over the windmill, and that is one of the top 5 exercises that we teach in the core curriculum in our kettlebell system. So at this point, you've probably had some practice with the Turkish getup. You're gonna wanna review everything from hinging, lat packing, breathing, that was taught in some of the previous lessons with the Turkish getup in the swing. That's why I consider this an advanced lift, because you should probably have all that down prior to getting here. This will make a lot more sense. You'll be a lot safer, and this will be a lift you can employ almost right away in some of the core workouts. I namely program this on the Wednesday workouts, the back, abs, and core. It's occasionally put in the flows, chains, and complexes, but more of the technique sessions are gonna be done in the back, abs, and core. So let's break this lift down. It's got a lot of small details, a lot of fine points. It's a flexibility-based exercise, so positioning, breathing, mechanics, that's all really important. We're gonna go over all that. So stay tuned, we're gonna go over the windmill. We have a guest in today's lesson. I have brought in one of my longtime students, Mrs. Lauren Dotzer. She has absolutely one of the finest windmills I have coached and seen. Not only is her windmill good, she has a record of an 80-pound, 36-kilo Turkish getup, which obviously would transition to a great windmill. So I brought her today for this lesson on the windmill. She's gonna help me out with some of the positioning, the mechanics. Pay attention to all these little details. She has a phenomenal windmill. Okay guys, let's jump right into it. Your foundation of your windmill is gonna be what you do with your legs and your hips. So let's position those things right first. The first thing I'm gonna have her do for her windmill practice is take her feet and turn them 45 degrees to one side. For right now, it's gonna be to her right, okay? The second thing I'm gonna have her do is kick all of her weight, 100%, into her left hip and kind of kick it back. Give it a real sassy hip kick on the left right there. Okay. What that's going to do is take all of the weight, when the windmill finally gets up there, it's going to put all of the weight in this left leg and left hip. 100% of your weight is going to go in the left hip. Her right leg, when she shifts her weight over there, is going to have nothing. There's absolutely no weight on her right leg during this windmill. Okay, so it's got a real sassy hip kick, kind of a weird looking setup. You're going to notice some flexibility is required in that left hip capsule. If you're having trouble getting there, there's some stretches we can do for that. But this is the main setup for the windmill. We got to cock the feet 45 degrees. We're going to hip out a little bit and shove all of our weight in this back hip. Okay, so before we actually get into anything further than this, I want to show you what a couple reps of the windmill look like with just your body weight. So she's going to turn her feet, kick all of the weight into that left hip. Now I'm going to have her put her left hand above the head. This is the side that will have the windmill. We'll get into that later. And go ahead and show a couple body weight windmills. This is the actual windmill. We're going to add a kettlebell to the top hand in a second. So she's hinging to the side. She's hinging out to the left. There's a lot of other small things with the shoulder packing, the breathing, and the head, but this is the windmill exercise right here. It's basically a lateral hinge with the bell overhead. It's kind of like a sister exercise for the Turkish getup. Okay. One thing I want to get down before we go any further in the practice lesson is what we're doing with our spine, and more importantly, what you shouldn't be doing, what we're not trying to do with the windmill. So go ahead and take a windmill position, Lauren. Left hand above the head, and show me a proper windmill, just one rep. Okay. Look at the arch in her back and how she's really crushed out in her left oblique and left lat. This is what I want you to take a look at here. Go and do one more like that, please. Pay attention to how her spine is positioned here. Okay, now hold on. A lot of you are going to have tendency to just bend over to the side and do almost like a side bend, like you're melting into the windmill. That is not the point. So let me get this out now before we go too deep in the practice lesson. You want to fix this early. So go ahead and show me what it looks like when somebody just folds over badly in the windmill. Okay, the back is now slacked over to the side and she is side bended over. That's not what we want. We're going to get a lot of nasty low back and side pressure. We don't really want that. We want the weight in the lat, the oblique. Go ahead and come up out of there. Show it properly one time. We want the weight in the lat, the oblique, stretching this capsule here. That's where we want the weight of the windmill. Okay, come on up. Now show one bad, folding over to the side. Yeah, it can be torture down here. This is not a good position for the windmill. Do you see what we're looking at here? It's so small. Inches make miles here. So go and come on up. Go down very slowly here. During the path of the windmill for this lesson, we want to keep the lat scrunched. We want to keep this side of your body scrunched and tight. We don't want to fold over to the side. That's very critical. Go and come on up. It's very critical to this practice lesson so you make it all the way through and your windmills don't have this little problem right here. Okay, now let's get into what's going on at the shoulder joint and the overhead position. Once you've got the hips right, and we've got the weight distribution right in the outer hip, we got the spine position somewhat in check, we can work on that as we go. We need to get down this shoulder packing and what's going on with the shoulder. If this is not correct, you are in jeopardy for big injury with the windmill. So this shoulder packing concept, you should have learned back in the Turkish get up in the press in our basic 5 instructional. If not, go back and review that. We're gonna touch on a little bit here, but I've got a whole section on that you need to have down prior to the windmill. There is no other exercise in kettlebells that requires a shoulder pack quite like the windmill. This is very important. So let's take a windmill position. Let's start with the arm overhead. And what I'm talking about, if I can get you to come in a little bit, is look at this big lat muscle that protects her shoulder. Go ahead and pull it down into the socket, relax it up, pull it down in the socket. This is a protected shoulder. This is the equivalent of squeezing your butt on the swing. We want this armpit muscle squeezed and down in the socket. We don't want it up and out of the socket where it's up and relaxed. Now we have a loose shoulder, and if the windmill gets too wobbly, it can actually injure your shoulder and pull it out of socket. She wants to pull the lat down in the socket, scrunch it, just the same as you would do with squeezing your butt on the swing. Pull that down and go through a couple windmills if you can, with a tight lat, tight pack. This is what we're looking at. Same concept from the Turkish get up in the press. The lat must be crushed, especially right here. Go ahead and come on up. Let's do one more, and at the bottom, I want to show it too. So it's tight, it's tight, it's tight. Right here is the most important part to have your shoulder packed. Go ahead and unpack it for a second. The kettlebell will get wobbly if it's not crushed and squeezed. Go ahead and crush that down. Yeah, now come on up. Okay, do one more rep. Okay. Take a look at that. All the weight distribution in that left hip, the lat's packed, and her spine's in a good spot. This is a good setup for the windmill. That's how you should be bending and hinging into the windmill. Okay, another very important point beyond the shoulder packing, let's look at the hand position and how the kettlebell is going to sit on top of the lockout there. Go ahead and stick this up here. Take a look at what's going on here, guys. As you learn with the press, when you get to the top of a press, you need to have your thumb in sight. You can't have the kettlebell turning over. This is extremely important in the windmill. It's going to fall and hit you in the head if that happens. So hand position and thumb position is super critical. Can I have you angle, there you go, angle into the windmill. And I'm going to have you hinge over and slowly go down on the windmill, noticing that her thumb stays in sight the entire time. Pause right there for a second. If your hand turns this way, that kettlebell sitting right here is going to fall over and land on the floor, hopefully not hit you in the head, but we're going to have a bad injury. What we want is to keep the thumb in sight, right here, the shoulder packed, and the hand just like this. Go ahead and come up from the windmill. Her hand never actually changes. This stays fixed. Go ahead and windmill again. Thumb stays in sight, thumb stays in sight. At no point does the hand or the thumb turn over like this. This is bad. We want to see that thumb in sight. Okay. And notice at the very top, when she windmills, the thumb is facing back. This is proper hand positioning for the windmill. The shoulder packed, the thumb in sight. Notice her head position now. This will be the final thing. As she goes down on the windmill, where's her head? The one place you don't want it to be is looking down. You want to look up on all windmills. The hand-eye coordination helps keep the kettlebell still. Go ahead and come on up from there. Okay. This is the only part where you can take your eyes off of the kettlebell. As you go down for the windmill, look up at the bell. Get that feedback. We want this bell as still as possible. We don't want a wobbly bell here. The hand-eye feedback and the tight lat will help keep this bell stable through the path of your windmill. Go ahead and come on up. She cannot go any faster on the down phase of this exercise than she can keep that bell stable. If it's wobbly, your windmill is not going to be very well. First of all, it cannot be fast, and it's actually injurious. We want to be slow, we want to be stable. So those two things really help in keeping the bell in place. Okay, the concept of breathing during the windmill. This is going to be extremely critical to your safety during, and especially at the bottom of the windmill. There is a certain way to breathe that's going to protect you and keep you safe, and so you can actually get the abdominal benefit, the abdominal strengthening of this exercise. Okay, let's take a look at what's going on with the breathing. So windmill position, turn the feet 45 degrees, kick all of the weight into that left hip. There should be no weight on her right leg whatsoever. She's going to pack this shoulder. Okay, now go and do one windmill as normal before we get into the breathing. Okay, now the safest way you're going to be on the windmill is to breathe in on the way down, hold your breath at the bottom in the pocket because that's what's going to protect you, and do your exhaling on the way up. you don't want to breathe backwards and you don't want to breathe incorrectly. Bad things can happen. The worst thing to happen is you have an injury, but the least, your heart rate is going to go higher than it should. We want to have the breath timed in sync with your motion. So she's going to breathe in, inhale, inhale, hold her breath right here. Very important part. Hold your breath in the bottom of the windmill and then breathe out as you come up. Breathe in on the way down. Hold your breath, hold your breath, hold your breath, hold your breath, hold your breath. Exhale out. One more time. Inhale, hold, 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 hold. That holding of the breath is what protects you right here. And then exhale as you kind of come out to relieve the pressure. Okay, last one. Inhale, inhale. Hold the breath, and holding that breath is what your abdominals are doing there. They're protecting you. They're tight right there. Exhale on the way out. Okay, give it a break for a second. So that breathing concept of inhale down, hold the breath in the pocket, exhale out, you should recognize from squats and from deadlifts. It's the same concept. This is still a hinge exercise. So the same breathing components that you employed in the deadlifts, you also employ here. It's the same as when you do like a goblet squat or a front squat. Inhale down, exhale up. The most difficult part of that is in the pocket, so that's where you want to hold your breath and stay tight. Squeeze your stomach, squeeze the handles, tighten everything up. That's where you want to protect yourself. That holding your breath and bracing is what protects you. Let's take a look at it one more time. Turn the feet 45 degrees, hand above the head, pack the shoulder, make sure the hand's in the right spot, and let's follow the same position, the same lines we had before. Inhale down, hold the breath and exhale up. Inhale down, hold the breath in the pocket, exhale out. Whatever you do, do not breathe out on the bottom of a windmill. It's not good. Whatever you do, don't breathe out on the bottom of a windmill. Hold your breath. Okay, try it again. Inhale down, hold your breath, exhale out. That holding of the breath is what's going to protect you. Whatever you do, do not breathe out on the bottom of a windmill. Okay? Okay, a very small detail that you might want to employ and take a look at here is where you're reaching your hand at the bottom of the windmill. This is going to have a dramatic effect on where the weight is distributed amongst your body. And if you reach to the wrong spot, I'll bet you're taking the weight off the wrong leg there. So check this out. I'm going to have her take a windmill position and watch where she reaches her hand right here. She's going to reach it in between her feet. There's a reason for that. Go ahead, come on up and try one more time. Watch where she's reaching her hand. Come on up. And now can I have you reach one like way over here where most people want to do the first time. Look what she's done here. You see how she distributed all of her weight over on the right leg when she did that? Go ahead and come back up and try that again. Give me a windmill way off to the right over there. Watch her weight distribution. She has to shift some weight over on her right leg to do that. Now we're defeating all the purpose of this nice hamstring stretch, and she's probably getting some of that load in her lower back. Not good. Go ahead and come on up. What I want you to do is, when you go for your windmill, is to slowly turn and rotate a little bit so you can reach your hand in between your feet. This is the spot I want you to reach. Go ahead and come back up. Watch her body do that again. She has to kind of turn and rotate a little bit more to get that position. Some of you are going to be tight there. Your hamstring and your outer hip capsule are going to kind of dictate that. But you don't get points for going down farther than you should. If you get to the point where your hamstrings are maxed out and they can't go down anymore, and at that point you're just side bending over and just trying to reach the ground for whatever reason, you don't get extra points for that, and it's probably not going to be sitting in the muscles in the right way. So this is how I want you to kind of reach during the windmill. Reach in between your feet. Kick the hip out really far. That's where I want you to reach. Do you see how when she does that, all of her weight stays on this left leg? I'm going to have you do one more. Come on up. But do it wrong and show how it transfers over to the right leg. You see how all of her weight is on that right leg? It's so subtle. But if you really watch, it's not all on the left leg anymore. This is not what we want. This is such a small detail. It might take a lot of practice, but try both sides because you might be better at one side than the other. That weight distribution technique and where you reach on the windmill is super critical. Give that some practice. Okay guys, here's some more tips. Lauren's got a great technique for some of you who are limited in your mobility on your windmill or have questions about how to reach. Check this out.
Okay guys, so if you are a little bit nervous about looking up at a bell and trying to reach down in between your feet, or if you feel like you have a little bit of tightness in your hamstring, this is a really great technique that's going to help you get your windmill in the right spot. So I'm going to set up my windmill. I am sitting my weight in that back hip, in my left hip. I'm going to pack that lat. I've got my hand up overhead. Now, I'm worried about not being able to look down and actually get my hand in the right position as I come down. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have my bottom hand, right now in this case my right hand, track along the inside of my leg. So as I come down, I keep that arm kind of connected to my leg, and you'll notice that here at the bottom, I still can maintain my packed lat. All that weight is in that back leg and it's loading that back hamstring, but I've got a safety net allowing me to come down in the right spot. Let me show you one more time. I come down, I'm right in between the feet still, and I come back up. That should save you guys in terms of having some mobility issues or just limited range of motion with the hamstring, and also just feeling a little bit nervous about trying to reach and maintain some eye contact with that bell overhead.
Okay, so real small detail. Let's look at her torso position, chest position, how I want you to have it, and how I don't want you to have it. So, can I have you put your left hand above your head? Show me a windmill that's more chest down. Take a look at this. You see how she's almost rotated chest down, and it's creating a big stress on her shoulder to come way back here? That's not what I want. Come back up a little bit. I'm gonna have her rotate and take her entire chest and front and rotate it right toward you guys at the camera right there, as much as she can. And it almost creates almost like an airplane effect. Try again. Notice how her belly button and her chest is sort of rotated up toward you guys at the camera right there. That's going to distribute a lot of weight back here in the hamstring. On this next one, show it chest down incorrectly. So A, her head went down. B, her chest is facing down. C, her shoulder is just so far back here you can't keep a tight lat. You're in jeopardy for injury here. You're putting too much stress on the shoulder with this chest and torso position. Instead, try it with the chest and torso rotated this way. Yes. Does that feel like a better position on windmills? Yeah.
Much better.
Employ that. We don't want the chest down windmills. You're just going to feel a big stress in your shoulder. And if you have a tight chest, it's not going to go back there and it could be injurious. Okay, guys, I think at this point, let's see what some actual reps look like. I'm going to have Lauren perform some windmills on her right side. She's going to start with the bell in front of her here, clean it up, press it up. You can get the bell above your head any way you prefer. First thing she's going to do, turn those legs 45 degrees, put all the weight in that right hip, check out a couple reps. Listen to her breathing while she does it. Inhale down, hold the breath, exhale out. Her eyes are on the bell, her thumb is inside. She breathes in on the way down, holds the breath in the pocket, exhale on the way out. Watch her weight distribution, how everything is on this right leg. Nothing is on her left leg. Last one on this side. Nice. Don't change sides. On this next rep, take a look at where she's going to be placing her hand on the bottom. Some of you will have a tighter side and a better side. I think we all do. Try to identify that early in your training. Nice. Hand-eye coordination. Her thumb is in a great spot. I can see her shoulder pack. Spine's in a nice spot. You notice there's absolutely no bend in her left leg. If you start seeing that and you're starting to squat a little bit, that's where the problems come in. She is fighting ever so hard to keep this left leg straight as an arrow. And last one. So there's three positions that I would like to see your arm in for this low windmill. It's either going to be above your head like an imaginary windmill as best you can. The second place is going to be on your hip, or the third place is going to be behind your back here, wherever you're most comfortable. Okay, now let's take a look at this. Instead of loading the top arm, which if you're in the situation, it's because we don't have the mobility here. We'll get there. So we're going to place the kettlebell in the bottom hand, and that's going to be our marker there. What I'm going to have her do is do the exact same motion of the windmill, hinge out to the side, distribute the weight the same, but as soon as that kettlebell touches the ground, that's the end of her windmill. So she's using a competition bell, which is a little bit bigger, so range of motion is slightly limited. If you have hard style bells and they're smaller, you'll get another inch or two out of it, great. Okay, so it's limited range of motion. There's no jeopardy to the top shoulder. You just want to make sure you're hinging correctly, bracing correctly. You're still going to want to pack this lat, even though it feels like like you don't need it, I still tell people, hack this lat, treat it the same as it's a regular windmill. This is called the low windmill. We're just making use out of the bottom hand. Instead of touching the ground, she's loaded it now. Okay, regression to the windmill. Okay guys, at this point, let's take a look at the windmill. I'm gonna have Lauren knock out some real reps at real time speed, and I'm gonna kind of talk about all the points that we went over today, from the mechanics, the breathing, hip position, lat packing. Practice with me. Let's go over a couple windmills together. You can obviously replay this as many times as you need to, but when we practice, I recommend 5 reps at a time, no more than 10. I'm gonna have her do 5 and kind of go over all the points that we just went over. So she's gonna start by getting the bell up above her head any way she wants to. She chose clean and press. Let's take a look at these windmills. I'll have her do 5. So right away, eyes are on the bell. Lats packed. Crush the handle. Look at her weight distribution. I can look at that and see that all of that weight is kicking back into that right hip, and it's straight. That's really good that we have a straight leg right there. We don't want that thing bending. Her left leg, you can see how it just kind of kicks and loosens up. There's no weight on it. I can tell by looking at it. I'm gonna do one more. Watch her breathing. Inhale down. Hold the breath. Exhale out. Change sides, please. When she changes sides, I'm gonna have her do a hand-to-hand swing like I always have you guys do in class. Kettlebell's in her left, so she faces the feet to the right, away from the kettlebell. Breathes in, holds the breath at the bottom, exhales out. Keeps her thumb in sight the whole time. Keeps her eyes on the bell. That shoulder stays packed, especially right here, especially right here, especially right there. There you go. All the weight in the left leg, and it's straight as an arrow. Look at where she's reaching her hand, right in between her feet. Exhales out. These are good windmills. I would love for everybody to have a windmill that good. Unfortunately, it takes practice and flexibility. This is much better than I can do on the windmill. Mrs. Lauren Dotzer, everybody.
Thank you for having me, guys. Practice your windmills.
Yeah, this takes a lot of practice. It's not an easy lift. That's why it's in the advanced category. If you guys have any questions, feel free to DM me, shoot me videos. This takes a lot of practice. Don't get frustrated. Start light, start with your body weight. And some of you might be training body weight for quite a while. That's totally normal. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Saturday afternoon in Belmont Shore. On a Friday night. Nice, ladies.